Hello everyone and welcome to the second game of the second match of the finals of the Julius Baer Generation Cup between Magnus Carlsen and Arjun Erigaisi. We've seen what happened in the first game. Magnus won very convincingly, and now Arjun must strike back. If he does not, if Magnus wins this game, then the match is over, because Arjun needs to win this match in order to force tie breaks, as he lost the first one. So now what he has to do is either win or draw, but most certainly not lose. So let's see what happened in this one. If Magnus wins it, he wins the entire thing. So Magnus has the white pieces and he opens with c4. He goes for the English opening. Knight to f6, we have knight to c3 and the g6. And if you're watching this game without watching the previous one, I do suggest you watch the previous one before heading into this one. So pawn to e4 by Magnus, we have d6, d4, and now bishop to g7, just transposing into a normal King's Indian defense. We have f3, the Saemisch variation of the King's Indian, castles by Arjun, and bishop to g5. We have c5 striking in the center, and Magnus grabs more space with the d5. So nothing new here, this is all very standard stuff. h6, bishop to e3, e6, and now Magnus plays queen to d2, puts pressure on this h6 pawn, but first Arjun captures in the center, captures on d4, on d5, c captures on d5, and now knight b to d7. And it seems like Arjun has blundered the h6 pawn, but this is something that has probably happened to you numerous times while facing the King's Indian defense. If you capture, then black replies with the very sneaky knight captures on e4. This attacks your queen, so obviously the knight has to be captured. The problem is, after the knight is captured, you always have to remember you have played f3, queen h6, h4 comes with check, and then after the check is taken care of, just queen captures on h6, and black solves all of his problems. No more advantage for white. So Magnus just goes knight to h3. He wants to shift the knight back to f2. We have a6 by Arjun, preparing b5, and now just knight to f2. And it's a very, very tricky situation. Now bishop captures on h6 is a threat, because you don't have queen to h4 check at the end of that line. So Arjun has to deal with this, and he could play king to h7, but he plays h5 instead. And now Magnus plays a4, stopping that b5 expansion. And now there is a game where knight to e5 was played, but here Arjun plays rook to b8, hoping to get that b5 move in. And it is now, as of move 13, that we have a completely new game. So Magnus continues development, bishop e2. We have knight to e8, shifting the knight over to c7 to add more support to that b5 push, and Magnus castles. We have knight to c7, and now bishop to g5, attacking Arjun's queen, checking if he will maybe play f6 to weaken his king structure a bit more, but no, he just plays queen to e8, and now bishop to h6, preparing to trade off the dark square bishops. Bishop captures on h6, queen captures. It looks scary inviting the queen all the way to h6, but you don't have anything to add to the attack, so the king is very safe here. But now Arjun can strike on the queen side, so pawn to b5, and now Magnus plays a captures on b5. Very interesting would be pawn to f4, and it's very hard to deal with this. But okay, Magnus just trades, captures, and now he goes rook to a7. Again, f4 is a very, very nasty idea, sort of inviting b4, then you bring the knight to d1, and then, you have to deal with all of these e5, e6 ideas. And also bishop captures on h5. Many tricks are in the position, and also just f4, f5. Many scary ideas here. So okay, Magnus goes rook to a7 instead, and now we have pawn to b4, challenging the knight. So rook captures on c7, b captures on c3, and now Magnus recaptures. B captures on c3, and rook to b2. Arjun gets a very active square for his rook. Rook to e1, defending the bishop, and now queen to e5. Putting pressure on that c3 pawn, so Magnus just brings the queen back, queen c1, defends the pawn and attacks the rook, and now rook to b3, adding another attacker to the pawn here, and just knight d1. Magnus nicely defends his pawn. He's up a pawn, so of course he's very, very happy. We have pawn to h4. Arjun starts some sort of an attack on the king side, and now bishop to c4, forcing the rook away from the c3 pawn. Rook back to b8, and now, only now, pawn to f4 by Magnus. And now the queen has to retreat. We have queen f6, and now knight to f2, preparing to shift the knight over to g4. And it's not easy to get control over the g4 square. As long as the knight is on d7, the bishop has no control over the over this square. And you could play something like knight to b6, but it's not all that impressive. Bishop will come to d3, and again e5 will come with an attack on the queen. Sorry about that. It does not look easy for Arjun. But okay, after knight f2, we have rook to e8, grabbing more control over the e5 square, and now Magnus executes it nonetheless. Pawn to e5, and now if you capture here, it seems like you can because you have sufficient control over the square. You don't really, because after d captures on e5, knight g4 attacks the queen and covers the e5 square. And once you move the queen, f captures on e5. This is just a spectacular position for white. So much control. The bishop on c4, spectacular. Knight guarding that f6 square. At some lines, maybe rook captures on d7, removing the defender of the f6 square, just completely blasts through the position. So after e5, Arjun says, I'm not having any of this, just brings the queen back. Queen d8 attacks the rook. Rook to c6 now, attacking the d6 pawn, and just d captures on e5. Magnus now does not recapture, he just plays pawn to f5. The bishop is still blocked by the knight, and now Arjun's position will soon come under heavy fire. And also by playing f5, Magnus opened up the path back to the h6 square for his queen. So g captures on f5, and now queen to h6. And this is an incredibly scary position. Already some checkmates are being threatened. For example, if you play something like e4, you want to play knight to e5, which makes sense. Of course, this would attack the rook and the bishop. It's a forced checkmate in 3. Just rook g6 check, only move is f captures on g6, and now this spectacular d6 check from the bishop. There is no square for the black king. You have to put something in between, but rook e6 is the only move. Bishop captures, it would be checkmate. So after this queen to h6 move, we have knight to f8 by Arjun, trying to set up some sort of a defense here, and Magnus just plays rook to f6, preparing to push d6 and put even more pressure on that f7 pawn. And now look at Arjun's pieces. I mean, this is just very, very sad to look at. It's like that legendary game between Vasily Ivanchuk and Garry Kasparov, where he forced all of Kasparov's pieces on the back rank. If you haven't seen it, do check it out. It's a very, very cool game. But yeah, it's hard to find the move here for Arjun. He plays rook to b7. At some point, the rook might help out with the defense of the black king, but Magnus plays pawn to d6, opens up an attack towards the black king. Now you really have to be very, very careful. Bishop to e6, blocking the light square bishop, and here there is only one good move for Magnus, but there are many, many ways for you to actually win this. And the move is queen to g5 check. And of course, all of you thought about this move because why not? But what comes next is very, very important. King to h8 by Arjun, and now Magnus has to decide how to play this. And like I said, there are many winning ideas here. He plays rook to h6, but I will show you one that's truly spectacular. Knight to g4, absolutely crushing. Now, there's no move you can make here. You can't not capture the knight, and if you capture the knight, then it's just game over. Bishop gains control over this diagonal, and now queen h6 will just be game over. If the knight blocks this, you will deliver checkmate. The bishop covers the h7 square, and if knight g6, it's possible because you would very happily allow something like bishop captures, pawn captures, so the rook also gains control of these squares. Just rook e to f1, and now there is no move. Whatever you play, you're just gonna get crushed. The bishop captures will end the game now with the rooks doubled on the f file. So that's in the position. However, rook to h6 by Magnus, also very nice. We have knight to h7, and now he plays queen to h5. This just wins the pawn by force and completely opens up the black king. Now rook captures on h7 is threatened, so you have to play f6, and now just bishop captures on e6, removing the defender of the f5 pawn. Rook captures on e6, and now queen captures on f5, still putting pressure on h7, but attacking that rook here. Rook captures on d6, and now rook captures on h4. And now, okay, it's equal material, but the black king is wide in the open. Rook to g7 by Arjun, and now pawn to h3. And the even more problem for Arjun is that he is down to 1 minute on the clock. Magnus has some 3 minutes on the clock. Queen d7, Arjun would very much enjoy trading queens as, well, the endgame would be manageable, but just queen to f3 by Magnus. And now we have queen to d8. He's preparing f5 to put pressure on this rook, but interestingly, f5 was a possibility even here. You try and you give up a little bit of material. For example, rook captures on e5. Now you double up on the g file, and it looks like you are back in the game. But there is this very silly king to f1 move, and the black does not have anything. It's just very, very sad. If you play rook captures on g2, of course, rook captures on h7, and that's it. If you capture here, then the rook is unguarded, and if king captures, then just queen to h5 check, king to g8, and rook e8 forces black to give up the queen. It's a very, very unplayable. So queen to d8, Arjun prepares f5, and now Magnus just brings another attacker in. Knight to e4, attacks the rook on d6. Now Arjun plays f5, attacks the knight, and exposes this queen to rook threat. And now, okay, Magnus trades. Knight captures, queen captures, and now rook captures on e5. We have knight to g5, attacking the queen, and here just rook to e8 with check by Magnus. And now what do you play? Do you run? Do you block? Problem is, if king to h7, it's just a very, very forcing king hunt. Queen captures, king h6, rook to h8 with check, knight to h7, and now queen to e6 with check. King g5, now knight to f5, and you really don't have anything to look for here. The queen is attacked, the rook is hanging. You can play something like queen to f4, but then h4 with check, and now after king to g4, so many awesome ideas like knight captures and g7 opening up a discovery. It's just a merciless king hunt. So after rook to e8 check, rook to g8, but now Magnus very, very happily trades down, captures, queen to d5 with check, king to h8, and now queen to e5 with check, king g8, and now knight captures on f5, attacking the queen and just enjoying his extra pawn, but also threatening checkmate on g7, and Arjun is just finished. He tries knight captures on h3 with check, trying to get some sort of a perpetual, as if he can save the game, he continues the match. But after captures here, we have queen to g5 check. Magnus just blocks with queen to g3, and now it was in this position on move 52 that Arjun Erigaisi resigned the game, and with it the entire match, because Magnus now leads 2-0, and it is impossible for Arjun to win the second match in order to force tie breaks. So here, of course, you will have to trade. There's nothing you can do. If you move the king, you just lose the queen. So captures, and of course, you have an endgame where you are up a pawn and the knight. That is completely winning. So yeah, great showing by Magnus in the finals. Arjun played a spectacular chess in the preliminaries, and I mean, throughout the entire year, he just crushed everyone. And in the preliminaries, he only lost, I believe, the game to Magnus. It was that first game. Also in the opening, they played in the first game in the Pirts. But other than that, he just completely crushed the event. But now in the finals against Magnus, like he said, he couldn't get out of his head that he was playing against Magnus. He couldn't just focus on playing chess. He came under the influence of the Magnus effect, as so many before him have done so. But yeah, very, very nicely played by both of them, but Magnus was a little bit better, and he wins very, very cleanly. He only needed 2 games to take the second match. On the first day, he won 2.5 to half, and now second day just 2-0. So truly, truly impressive stuff. Other than this, winning the event, Magnus also said that he will be giving more information regarding the drama that has shook the core of the chess world for the past 2 weeks. Probably tomorrow, but maybe maybe not tomorrow. But he will at some point give us more on the subject. So we'll see what happens. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. Who knows what the future holds. But one very interesting thing that was asked to Magnus in the interview after the match was, as there is soon to be a chess boxing event where Lawrence Trent will be fighting. I can't remember the name, but he will be fighting someone. I know the guys just have a problem remembering names. He's with Eric Hansen in the Chess Bros. Come on, man. Yeah, I can't seem to remember the name, but there will be a chess boxing match, and they've asked Magnus who would be his preferred opponent if he were to have a chess boxing match. To which Magnus replied that someone actually had a beef with him in the past, and that they wanted to fight him not just over the board but also in person, and that's all the information that he's going to give. So if you know who this person is, do share in the comments, as you know, no one really knew what he was talking about. Maybe they do, maybe just I didn't know what he was talking about, but obviously he had a beef with someone. So very, very interesting stuff. Yeah, Aman. Yeah, of course, Aman. Yeah, I remember that now. Yeah, Lawrence Trent will fight Aman in the finals of the event. So it should be very, very interesting. It will be, I believe, in November or December, something like that. But yeah, if you know who Magnus was talking about, do share in the comments. Will be very interesting to know. So yeah, that's the game and this short coverage of the entire Julius Baer Generation Cup. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Quite a lot of games that we've enjoyed. Very nicely played by everyone, and you know, I really enjoyed these matchups with the younger players, Pragnananda, Erigaisi, and you know, Vincent Keimer and everyone. Christopher Yu just challenging the older generation, not just the older like Magnus, but older like Vasily Ivanchuk and Boris Gelfand. So really just a wonderful event. So that's the game and the match and a little bit of extra info. Hope you guys enjoyed that. If you have any idea who Magnus was talking about, do share in the comments so we can all enjoy and increase our vast knowledge. I would like to thank Anhuman Shukla, Henry Spraggins, Mr. Robert De Crown, Saura Medirata, and Michael Owens for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.